Dakshinamurthy bestowed an eternal teaching, revealing timeless truth to his Rishi disciples in silence. That very same silence is the silence of Sri Bhagavan. That same silence still abides as the very nature of yourself. The silence is of the nature of absolute immutable being. Realization of it, or self-knowledge, is identity with that. The knowledge of identity with that is certain. When we inquire within ourselves and realize that there is only one indivisible self, that is, there is no one to comprehend or not to comprehend what has just been indicated, but just one self of the nature of Satchidananda, being, consciousness, bliss, alone exists always. This is a matter of self-knowledge. That is, the self alone comprehends the knowledge of itself. No other can do so. Where there is one without a second, as the Upanishad refers to it, there is knowledge. There is reality comprehending itself. This cannot be known through the senses or through the body. That is, one must abandon any misidentification as being a body or being an embodied entity in order to know. Similarly, in the abandonment of the misidentification as being a sensing entity, knowledge is revealed, innate knowledge that is neither bodily nor sensory. Similarly, this knowledge cannot be grasped in thought or by the mind, by any of the mind's permutations. It is not known as long as one regards the mind as an existent thing, as if there were two knowers in the one of you, mind and the consciousness, which is of the very nature of knowledge. When such misidentification or misconception is abandoned as so much imagined false definition, knowledge shines, self-revealed. It is all a matter of what you regard yourself as. If you regard yourself falsely, this self of the nature of absolute silence, which is Brahman, seems ungraspable. If an inquiry is made into the nature of the one who finds this ungraspable, his false definition, including the very notion of individuality, of existing as some kind of thing, vanishes, being unreal. And what remains is that silence which actually ever is and alone is. So then, when in ignorance, we seek a state of knowledge. Finding that knowledge, it is no state at all, but just being, which eternally is. And there is to be found no time when bondage was, when ignorance was. In this way, the entirety of the samsara is consumed. The illusion of birth, death, and all its suffering. Simply by knowing oneself. If the self is not known as it is, the unreal is imagined, and the one who so imagines is as unreal as that which he imagines. If the reality is known, it knows itself. God knows God, and that is yourself. The knowledge is of such utter non-duality that there is no one to separate from it, nor anyone to attain to it, nor anyone to maintain it, nor anyone to deviate from it, nor anything existing other at any time. Truth is self-revealed. The self shines in knowledge by its own light. Its happiness is self-sufficient. Its peace is unbreakable. Its freedom is without any limitation whatsoever. This realization is not an object, not something objectively perceived, but known in self-knowledge. It is not an occurrence or an event, but of the nature of the abiding reality. We cannot speak of it in terms of loss or gain. If you have seemed to lost hold of yourself, it's of utmost importance to realize that which you are. Nothing could be so more important than that. Realizing that, we find no lost state is possible. Hence the Maharshi's reference on numerous occasions to the story of the 10 men. There was no loss. That self is existing silently all along. Abandon the imagination that there is something else, something to cover it, something broken off from it. Thereby abandon dualism, which alone makes for unhappiness. In short, dive deep to know within yourself the answer to the question, who am I? As for the answer, silence is most eloquent.